Today, we're opening up a medical case file on what is, without a doubt, one of the most high-stakes emergencies imaginable: a direct assault on the brain's command center. We're not talking about just any stroke. This is an attack on that tiny, irreplaceable hub that controls pretty much every vital function. We're talking about the very core of who we are.
And look, this quote really says it all, doesn't it? This comes straight from the source material, and there is zero exaggeration here. We are dealing with an event where the stakes are, quite literally, life and death.
If you need to understand the sheer urgency of this, you just need to remember this one number: 1.9 million. That's how many brain cells are lost for every single minute that a stroke goes untreated. It's a catastrophe happening at the cellular level in real time. And it's why every single second is absolutely critical.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to go right to the scene of the crime, the brainstem itself. Then, we'll look at the usual suspects. What causes this to happen? We'll learn how to decode the clues the symptoms leave between, understand the desperate race against time for treatment, and finally, we'll look at the aftermath, the prognosis, and the long road to recovery.
Okay, so every good investigation starts at the scene. And in this case, we're zooming in on a part of you that's smaller than your thumb, but, holds the keys to your entire consciousness. We're not talking about a big area here. This is an incredibly compact, dense, and vital piece of neural real estate.
The easiest way to think about the brainstem is like the body's mission control. It's made of 3 parts: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla, and it handles everything. I mean, everything from your heartbeat and breathing to your ability to swallow or even just wake up in the morning. Every single message between your brain and your body has to pass through this little gateway. Seriously, if it fails, nothing else works.
And what's really fascinating here is that even within this supercritical structure, there's one particular hotspot: the pons. It's the target in a staggering 60 to 80% of all brainstem strokes. Now, for a neurologist, that's a huge clue. It helps them start narrowing down the location of the damage almost immediately.
All right, so we've got the lay of the land. Now we need to figure out who the culprits are. What is it that actually causes this whole system to fail so catastrophically? Well, let's bring in the usual suspects.
Turns out there are 2 main ways this attack can happen. The first one, and the most common, is an ischemic stroke. Just think of it like a plumbing blockage. A clot gets jammed in an artery, and suddenly the blood supply is cut off. The second is a hemorrhagic stroke. This one's more like a leak. A blood vessel actually bursts, and blood starts spilling into that delicate brainstem tissue, causing all sorts of damage from the pressure.
So if blockages are the main problem, what's causing them? Well, you can see here the #1 reason by a long shot is something called large artery atherothrombosis. It's a mouthful, I know, but all it really means is the hardening and narrowing of your arteries, which eventually leads to a clot. The next biggest culprit is a clot that actually forms somewhere else, usually in the heart, and then travels up to the brain.
And this, for me, is the most amazing part of the detective work: the clues. See, a brainstem stroke isn't just random chaos. Because this area is so densely packed with all these specific nerve highways, the symptoms a person shows create this incredibly precise map. It's like the stroke leaves behind a perfect fingerprint that points to the exact spot where the damage occurred.
Now, this table might look like a bunch of medical jargon, but it's really a diagnostic cheat sheet. So, for example, if a doctor sees that eye movement is paralyzed on the same side as the stroke, but there are tremors on the opposite side of the body, boom, they know the damage is in the midbrain. Or look at the just devastating locked-in syndrome. Damage to the pons can leave a person completely aware and conscious, but unable to move a single muscle except for their eyes. Each little cluster of symptoms is a unique fingerprint, telling doctors exactly where to look.
So the fingerprint is found, the location is identified, and in that very moment, the entire investigation pivots. It's not about what happened anymore. It's about what can we do right now. The whole narrative just shifts to pure, unadulterated speed, because that clock is ticking loud.
Hey, remember those 1.9 million neurons dying every minute? Well, this timeline shows you why that is so important. For an ischemic stroke, that's the blockage kind, doctors have this incredible tool, a clot-busting drug called TPA. But, and this is a huge but, there's a catch. It can only be used safely within this really narrow window of about 4.5 hours from when the symptoms first appeared. If you miss that window, the options get a whole lot more limited.
So what actually happens the second a patient hits the hospital doors? It is a highly choreographed, super fast sequence of events. First things first, stabilize the ABCs: airway, breathing, and circulation.
Step 2, pin down that last known normal time. That's everything for the 4.5-hour window. Step 3, get them into a scanner, a CT or MRI, right away to see if it's a blockage or a bleed. And step 4, if it's a blockage and they're in the window, give the treatment. Go, go, go.
And you know, this whole deep dive really brings us to what is maybe the most crucial point for every single one of us: how to spot a stroke. The acronym FAST is the most important tool you have. F is for face drooping, A is for arm weakness, S is for speech difficulty, and if you see any of these signs, T is the most important letter of all. It is time to call for help. Not in a few minutes, not let's wait and see. Right now.
So, the intense race against time in the emergency room is over, but for the survivor, a whole new phase of the investigation begins: the aftermath. What does life look like after an attack on the brain's central command?
The outcome can be wildly different, and this chart just shows how much location matters. Now, this is looking just at hemorrhagic strokes, the bleeds, and the pons. And the difference is it's stark. A bleed in one little area, the unilateral tegmental zone, has a survival rate of over 90%, but a bleed in the different zone, the massive ventral area, and that rate plummets to under 10%. It just proves that in the brainstem, we're talking about millimeters making all the difference in the world.
But I want to share a surprising and actually very hopeful fact. While brainstem strokes are often more deadly right at the beginning, for those who survive, the potential for functional recovery can actually be better than for strokes that happen in the main parts of the brain. The brain's ability to rewire itself, what we call plasticity, can lead to some truly remarkable progress with intensive rehab.
So, as we close this case file, let's just quickly run through the key takeaways. 1. The brainstem is the body's irreplaceable control tower. 2. The damage comes from one of two things: a blockage or a bleed. 3. The symptoms are not random. They are a precise map. 4. Time is brain. That is the golden rule. And finally, 5. Recovery is a huge challenge, but real, meaningful progress is absolutely possible.
And that really brings us to our final thought. We've just explored this structure that is both the body's most powerful command center and its most fragile point of failure. So knowing that the line between life, disability, and recovery can be measured in millimeters and minutes, what's the most important takeaway for you? What does it tell you about how urgently we need to listen to what our own bodies are trying to tell us?